Rant time! Wow, it's become an actual really common thing now, hasn't it? Where I sit down and I rant about some of the bullshit that Ubisoft's up to. Obviously, the content of this rant is in the title. If you didn't read the title and just saw that I uploaded, and you're here to watch the rant and you haven't even seen the title, how blind must you be? Here's what's going on, right? I think it was back around the release of the Hidden Ones, we had a conversation with Amar Azaziah on Twitter. Amar Azaziah is the head of content for Assassin's Creed. We had a conversation with him on Twitter in which we were talking about how Bayek deserves a sequel. And he said to us, right, come back once you've played both DLCs and we'll talk. So we did. So when it came to actually talking about it, I was quite up for it. So I tweeted, alright, let's fucking talk. So Amar re-engaged the old thread and said, so now that you have in average played more than AC2 Brotherhood and Revelations combined with AC Origins and its DLCs, I'm sure you loved the experience. So, you wanted to talk? ? And obviously he thought that that was some passive-aggressive shoot-down, as if we were going to go, yeah, we're happy with what we got. Right, it's time to move on to the next character, which you obviously want. But no, I think I personally read this message as a big glorified suck my dick. I say that because in this tweet, Amar is attempting to alienate us for wanting a Bayek sequel. As if it's like, why the fuck do you want a Bayek sequel? How dare you? We need to move on. You got to bear in mind that Amar Azaziah is the head of content for Assassin's Creed. So that means that he knows exactly what's coming next for the franchise, surely. So his response in this Twitter thread, his responses, shall I say, are very suggestive that they're not going to do a Bayek sequel unless Amar is fucking with us. And Amar fucking with us usually becomes a double fuck. So I don't think Amar's joshing with us particularly. So that's kind of upsetting, because that means no Bayek sequel, which is a shame, because I personally think that Bayek's a great character. As do many other fans. I've seen lots of people go, I love Bayek, he's an amazing character, all that blah 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 blah. And Ubisoft are going to throw him away for another character, another setting. And to an extent, I understand. One of the reasons Amar gave is that they want to go on to do new settings and things like that, and that makes sense. But at the same time, are those settings really going anywhere? If you took your time and told this story before moving on to the next one, then surely the narrative won't suffer for it. Because you've got to understand that when Ubisoft creates a new character and then moves on to the next one in the next game, it wouldn't be so bad if they managed to fully tell that character's story in that game. But no, they tell like a snippet, they tell you like the beginning maybe, up until a certain point, and then from there we know nothing, you know? And sometimes it doesn't even feel as if those characters even got any particular closure. And from that point, the character becomes irrelevant. They literally no longer get mentioned, they no longer have any actions that tie back into the story later on, they don't feel connected at all, and that's exactly why games like Unity, Syndicate, Rogue, Black Flag, if you will, 3, they all sort of had that problem, where they sort of became irrelevant after their game. Not necessarily 3 and Black Flag so much, but definitely with Rogue, Unity, Syndicate, those characters haven't had any relevance since. As for Altair and Ezio, what happened with Altair and Ezio is, Altair's story was told in Assassin's Creed 1, obviously not to the full extent, then they moved on to Ezio, but they always kept Altair relevant. They kept him relevant because he was immortalised by the Creed. He was a legend to the Creed. And then we have Revelations where we see more of Altair's story in flashbacks through Masyaf keys that Altair left, not necessarily for Ezio, but that's just how the story panned out, and it all ties up in a neat little bun at the end, both wrapping up Ezio's story and Altair's, which is beautiful. But it also narratively carried over into Assassin's Creed 3 with the continuation of Desmond's story until they cut that off. I don't feel as if we've had proper closure for Bayek. We've had closure for Bayek of Siwa, but then they opened up the tin of worms with Bayek, the hidden one, and his story ain't gonna be concluded. You see, Ubisoft literally struck thunder with Bayek, alright, as far as I'm aware. Bayek is great. He's getting a really, really good response. He's an amazing character. And Ubisoft are going to throw this character away, and given their track record in recent years, we'll probably never even hear about him again. Which means he's just suddenly become irrelevant again to the overarching story, and the modern day will probably be with a new protagonist elsewhere, and it won't even be connected. And that really annoys me. And I feel as if Amar is quite an advocate for changing Assassin's Creed to be way more episodic than it already is, because he compared it to Grand Theft Auto, among other episodic franchises. I think he fails to realise that Grand Theft Auto never had an overarching story, and there's always a case-by-case sort of game. Assassin's Creed has had this overarching story which you've dispersed into the comics that nobody gives a shit about, so it's not a case-by-case game, and yet you still want to make it one. You see, I think Assassin's Creed and Grand Theft Auto are way too different to compare. Grand Theft Auto might be great, but it's about as narratively perplexed as picking up a prostitute, driving into a shady alley and getting virtually wanked off. My point is, if Assassin's Creed became episodic like Grand Theft Auto and all those other franchises that thrive off of going to a new setting, a new character every single game, with disconnected stories, Assassin's Creed as a franchise would no longer have an overarching narrative and it would die, you know? Assassin's Creed has that overarching narrative in which there are things going on, there are stakes, there's an overall stake, and yet somehow you still want to put all that in the comics and make the games completely case by case. People have investment in Assassin's Creed from the old games. People have investment in that, and if you take that away and put it in the comics, I guarantee that lots and lots of people will just give up. My point here is that because from what I know, I'm fairly convinced they're not going to do a Bayek sequel. What was the point in creating Bayek, such a good character, if you're just going to throw him away? Now, I won't mention any names with this Twitter thread, but I noticed something when somebody got involved, right? When somebody got involved to back up everything Amor was saying, they weren't taking it down their own path at all. They didn't seem to have their own opinion. Their opinion seemed to just be bouncing off everything Amor was saying. And the chances that you hold the exact same opinion on everything with somebody is incredibly low. So, that leads me to believe that this certain individual was more of a yes man than actually inputting to the debate at all. That made me realise why Ubisoft thinks they're going down the right path with the franchise. Ubisoft have surrounded themselves with yes men, people who will literally say yeah to whatever they do. The franchise could be so much better if they listened to the constructive criticisms of people, of normal fans, people who just want the franchise to be the best it can be. But there are obviously people who, even if they don't know it, they're essentially completely arse-kissing Ubisoft. And when I say even if they don't know it, I'm sure they mean well, but it's what's coming across. Ubisoft are more likely to listen to somebody who's just going to butter them up with compliments all the time and never criticise them than somebody like me, James, Tyler, etc., who are a bit more critical. I say a bit, I mean a lot more critical, because we personally want the franchise to be the best it can be, and I'm sure these other people do too. They just go about it in a way in which Ubisoft goes, yeah, okay. So you're just saying, I'll support you no matter what. So that's why I think that Ubisoft is taking the franchise in this direction. I'm quite convinced at this point that we're not going to get a Bayek sequel. This doesn't completely rest on Amor Azazia's long-winded shoot-down on Twitter. I do have other reasons to believe that we won't be getting a Bayek sequel that I don't think I should be getting into just yet. Of course, you're going to have to let me know what you think about all this down in the comment section. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you all very soon with another video at some point.